And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, November 3rd, 2019. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective Steve Kulls, along with, he's down there today, my good buddy, Mr. Chris Bennett.
Hey, Steve, how's it going, man? You doing all right?
What's happening down there?
Oh, man, I'll tell you, it's been the cooler weather. Not been getting out too much, but maybe getting out and driving around some, looking at the leaves, and they're starting to change colors now, but I don't know. I think we may have one of those years again where the leaves change color one day and then they fall off the next, so I don't know if we're going to get to enjoy them that much.
Yep.
But,
so let's get to our hellos to everybody, too.
Yep. Oh,
and
yeah.
Hello, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, Tack.
Hello, Randy.
Yep.
Hello, Dean. And hello, our good friend Cryptidville, who's here So good to see everybody, and we got a bunch of other people. So hello, everybody on YouTube and Facebook. Soon, hopefully, we'll be back on the Twitter. But what a heck of a week we've had. I don't know if you know this, Chris, but Halloween night, we had a huge windstorm here. Huge windstorm. And I lost power for 15 hours, which is long. Wow. Which is long for me. One of my pals actually didn't get power back till yesterday afternoon. That's how bad it was. Yeah, they had a state of emergency. And let's say hi to more of our folks. Hello, Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Mike.
Mike.
Suzanne, how's it going?
Suzanne.
And John, what's happening?
Hi, John.
So it's good to see all our good friends tonight. We got a heck of a show lined up for you tonight. We're going to be talking about Bigfoot sightings tonight, and we're going to be talking particularly about Whitehall, New York, and some of the investigations I've done over the years. And for the first time ever, and now in some of my talks, I've shown the snippet of me being filmed after my Bigfoot sighting in 2011. What I've never showed before was, there's a hello for you, Chris.
Bye, Sherry.
And I've never shown this before, so it's kind of exciting for me, because when I was putting this together, I was rewatching this, and I didn't realize all these years. Now, mind you, this happened, going on 8 years ago, and I never realized that what I said at the campfire, and it's pretty revealing. It's awesome, and what was said at the campfire, it was really, really cool. So it's kind of a trip down memory lane for me. And I'm going to tell you something. Next year, this year is kind of a wash, but the weather's turned on us already. I do have one sighting report. I'm in the process of getting some information from the gentleman, and but next year I'm going to be in the field quite a bit. As a lot of people know, I do have quite the work schedule, because I keep my hands in one occupation that I like to do. And my business has kind of blown up a little bit, so I'm busy doing that. Plus, I work for an investigation company, so I'm constantly juggling. Right. So I'm really, really excited about hopefully tampering it down a little bit next year and getting out in the field a hell of a lot more than I have been the last couple of years. It's just been it's been busy for me, but it's all's good. So we're going to get some good video out there next year. We got the new camera in place and everything. Phenomenal times and good times ahead. And you look forward to getting in the field with TAC. Right. So we were out and about in Chautauqua Lake about a month ago now. Good time as always. But some of the things before we get into this, there's a few good reference books that I want to and reference materials. A couple of the latest pieces of information about what we're talking about tonight is the book by Brian Goslin called Abear Road: The True Story, and it's about the whole shebang about Abear Road. You can get it on Amazon. It's written by Brian and Sue Goslin.
Yeah.
So
really make your screen big, Steve.
Yeah,
Cut me out. Make it big so everybody can see that. Yeah. Well, I can't see it either hardly.
There we go.
There you go.
So what we're gonna do, there we are. So yeah, this is a great book. It's available on Amazon. It's not that expensive. It's not a very big read, but it's Brian's accounting of what had occurred surrounding his sightings. We've had Brian on the radio show many moons ago. Yeah. Great guest, great lecturer. I just ran into him at the Whitehall Bigfoot Fest, he's one of the organizers of that. Another one of the more recent resources too was, and you can see Brian on that along with Bill Brand and Paul Bartholomew. Bill Brand was one of my mentors. But The Beast of Whitehall by
Beast of Whitehall. Okay.
Small Town Monsters. That's Breedlove. This, I believe, was one of his first films in the series. So great factual. He's going right to the sources on those. And
cool. That's a good one to add to
so hello,
collection.
Walt, how are you? And Melissa says she doesn't get sightings, I get hearings. Yeah, there's a lot of those lately, hasn't there? Now, for the book that started me off in research, I was like one of those people that always thought it was just something in the Pacific Northwest, had long forgotten about Boggy Creek. And there's my shameless plug right there for I'm trying to do it back for What Would Sasquatch Do, my book. But the book that got me started at all was Monsters of the Northwoods. And it's all about sightings and stuff in New York, New England, Vermont, Kinderhook area. It has these nifty little maps and stuff in there, and it's got a nice little picture section. And then recently, I forget what year, I think I picked this up. What year was this published in? This was in 2008. It was a follow-up. That one was written in 92. This one was written in 2008. And of course, this one was written by Paul Bartholomew and Robert Bartholomew, his brother, who is a PhD living down in New Zealand. Bob's a great guy. Bigfoot Encounters in New York and New England. It's kind of a follow-up to it. Again, it's got a lot of different pictures and sightings in it.
Very cool.
Yep. Great reference material. Great reference material. And it even has in the back, it has, a sighting section of, in chronological order. So really some good resource material. Since we're talking about this tonight, obviously that's what I want to keep it on tonight. Who walked in? We have Aaron. Hello, Aaron. And hello, Frederick. And Fred. And look at his profile picture there.
I recognize one of those criminals.
That's right. Well, I'm on the far right, and Fred's on the far left. And that's Ted and Mike, and that's Mike Skamaka, one of our team guys, and that's Norma. So yeah, that was one of the crews. That's when we were doing the and I remember, I don't know if we've had Dave on the show, but when Dave Gibson's property and Pam up on Bleecker, New York, and they were actually featured. They actually had a little segment on the Beast of Whitehall. So So yeah, so that was on their property, doing some research that night. Yep. So as you can see, one time I was out there all the time. The last couple of years happens when you build the business, though. So anywho, let's get right into it. We do have a special message tonight, so we'll throw that out to that first.
Hello there, Charlie Wonton here. How you doing? Hello, Steve. Hey, Steve. I have a question for you. This would be a good question for you. Is it pointless to tell a bald man a hair-raising story? Okay, bye-bye.
Well, there you go. I think he's picking on my baldness, Chris.
Man, if I had hair, I would not put it in any of those styles you just showed. Now, granted, the lizard was cool. I like that. I don't know if that was an iguana or what, but it was pretty cool. Chameleon or something.
I don't know what the hell that was in the last one. No idea.
Yeah, the last one was pretty poo, man. He looked like an 80s hair band, remember?
Yeah, I you know what, if there's
Charlie.
one thing I gotta say, since I've been cutting my hair this way, I will never part again with my comb. Never again.
Yes.
So,
yes.
All right, bad jokes.
Well,
Fred also wanted to say
great. Oh man.
So
yeah, if you're going to be bald, be bald. Don't be ashamed of it. Be proud of it, man.
That's right. So anyway, let's get right into our topic tonight, which I'm sure many of you will have showed up for. So tonight we're going to be talking about some of our sighting stuff, and let's see. This may take just a little bit of adjustment here. So here we go. We're going to talk about first about Whitehall, New York. And Whitehall is just one of 3 municipalities in the United States that have a protective ordinance for the Sasquatch, making it illegal to kill one within. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not within town limits; it's within village limits. So, for the most part, it's a very small geographical area, but they have been seen in the village before. So, and there we are. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
And the infamous comment.
You tell him, Sherry.
Well, thank you. We'll take that. We'll take that as a compliment. So anyway, it's one of the few places that have a protective ordinance, and really, I did go out of order in one particular item, and so this was a newspaper article, August 30th, 1976, which kind of broke the whole thing wide open. This was in the Glens Falls Post-Star, but it was also covered in all the Albany local media about what was going on in Whitehall. One of the more interesting things about that is that Whitehall Police, New York State Police, and a Washington County Deputy Sheriff all responded to the scene and searched the area. But here's what the interesting thing is, but we're only able to spot the creature from a distance. Say what?
So, yeah. So they showed up and saw one.
they did. And if you get Brian's book, he writes about that particular incident because his father was there. And what happened was he was stuck in the village, and where they had seen it, there was actually, and his father was the police sergeant, and he was off duty. And what happened was his brother and another gentleman by the name of Martin Paddock came down, and we're like, my God, we just saw this thing up here, blah, 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 blah. So, and they're trying to tell Brian, and Brian's like, well, I can't go up there. So, let's call Dad, and we'll get him up there because he's a police sergeant. Right. And his dad said, well, I want you to call the state police and the sheriff's department and have them come up too. And that's how that all started. So very interesting story. And then that was, I believe, on the 25th of August, if my mind searches me correct. Let me just double check that. Yeah, that was on that was on August 20. That was on August 24th, 1976. Brian's sighting occurred on August 25th, 1976, the day after.
Right.
So there was a lot of hubbub, and he was actually, there was a state trooper who has a pseudonym in the book who, because he wanted to remain nameless, actually called Brian, asked him to come down there, and, you know, Brian was off duty. Hey, you want to hang out down here, and, you know, let's keep, you know, opposite ends of the field, because they were kind of interested in what was going on. Yeah. And that's how the incident at Bear occurred. So, but a year prior, in 1975, the Skean Valley Country Club owner, who in 74, him and his family all heard these very strange screams and howls coming from the surrounding woods. Now, they've lived up there all their lives. So this is, you know, very peculiar to them. It's not like they, entirely, you know, were foreigners to the land, going, you know, thinking that, you know, they would have easily recognized sounds they've heard previously.
Right.
So that happened in 74. Then in 75, while Cliff Spark was tending to his golf course, it was on hole number 1 that he actually had seen one of the creatures walking. And this is where, you know, you know, it gets into a great dispute, because Cliff felt that the eyes emitted light rather than reflected light. And, you know, that's a story he kind of stuck to, and I understand that. And as you can see, there's the marker on the actual country club. And the other note, reference of note, is that many years later, the Skean Valley Country Club, it had their sign has a Bigfoot with next to a golf course. So, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. I had no.
You know, and even Brian will say that in The Beast of Whitehall. Back in the 70s, they all wanted it hushed up. They didn't really want to make a big to-do about this. We can't, you know, we don't want to be known for a monster.
Right.
Be quiet. But now they're embracing that. You know, it brings in a lot of tourism. It brings in their Sasquatch Festival, which, like I said, had about 1,000 people there this year. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, good ad campaign too. They were putting it out in newspapers and social media, and they were getting people interested and fired up. And when I'm sitting there emceeing the Sasquatch calling contest, there had to be a good several hundred people sitting there in front of me, and we had almost 80 contestants. So you know, between the kids and the adults. So you know, it's a big deal.
Well, you know, with the Whitehall sightings and stuff, you couldn't ask for a better group of witnesses than you know, the deputy sheriff, the state trooper, the town police, everybody. Right. I mean, all those witnesses are trained about observing and remembering how to describe a subject. You know, everything perfect.
Well, afterwards, the trooper and the sheriff would not talk about it because you know, they were all respectively told, you need to keep quiet about this. You know,
that's understandable.
You know, so they were under threat that you know, you can't talk about this. So because they were all worried about credibility, and you know, so you look at that. But you know, we've come to times now, I think, where, you know, people accept other people's thoughts about things. We're a more diverse culture at that. So so
just like back here, you know, during the mountain lion sightings at Mammoth Cave, the employees went into the office and were telling the guy in charge, hey, there's a mountain lion, and he's like telling them, no, don't say that. Don't say that.
We have that same problem around. We have that same problem around here. NCON refuses to acknowledge that there are mountain lions out here. Even though I know a cop who actually got one on his trail camera, and they're like, "Nah, that's a cat." He goes, my ass, it's a cat.
Yeah, it's a cat. It's a big one.
That's a big one. Here, kitty, claw your face off. Anyway, now we go to August 25th, 1976, when Brian is sitting in a field off duty with his service revolver, his flashlight, sitting in his car, window rolled down. State troop car across from him down at a distance, and they start to hear a rustling, and all of a sudden the state trooper takes off, pulls out, does a U-E, and heads down the road out of there. So Brian hears something. He gets out of his car, shines the flashlight, and there is this thing standing there looking at him. It was a relatively close sighting. People ask him, well, why didn't you shoot it? And Brian, in his response is, hey, it was a trained police officer. You only shoot something if it threatens you.
Yeah.
And it just kind of turned back at him, raised its hand up. The eyes glowed red. It kind of, with the light on its eyes, it kind of reflected back. Very indicative of a tapetum lucidum. Kind of shined it, turned around and walked the other way. Kind of let out a little bit of a groan and walked the other way.
Right.
And in the field, there was a telephone pole, and there was. They actually took the telephone pole out a couple of years ago. So I'm glad I got this picture, because they put a sign up, and the top of the sign was the height of the creature. Now, if you look on there, that's my height, roughly my height. So I was a good foot under the sign.
Right.
So so that was about, so it was very tall, 7.5 foot easily. And that was his sighting, and it created quite the hubbub. And you got to understand, the whole entire neighborhood was under siege. Gould Road, which is nearby, Carver's Falls Road, where a gentleman actually took a shot at one. And when the state police responded, they actually found the shotgun shell on the ground where he had taken the shot from it. So he wasn't lying. They said, well, there's a shotgun shell right there. He took a shot at something.
Right.
So there you have that. So you got to understand the mentality. There was a big siege going on. And there, of course, after this and the publicity hit, which was August 30th, they were all told to keep quiet. So that kind of put a kibosh on the whole thing.
Right.
So that is, in the 1980s, Dan Gordon, another police officer, God rest his soul, Dan was a sweetheart of a guy. And on his deathbed, well, he thought it was his deathbed, and I believe it was 1994. I'm sorry, in 2003, rather. He had a heart attack, and on his deathbed, he came forward and said, I'm the second police officer that had this sighting. And he lived. And he actually lived for another 12 years. He passed in 2015. I can't believe he's been gone this long already. Just a heck of a guy. He participated in the 2008 Monster Quest, and he took him past the polygraph show.
They asked him to take a polygraph for that Monster Quest, and he did and passed, right?
That is correct. In fact, there were 3 people that took the polygraph test. The other one was Sue. I can't think of her last name right now, but the other one was named Sue. Sue Miller. Sue Miller, who, when she was a little girl, was out with her brother and was having rocks thrown at her, little pebbles almost. And when she turned around, she saw a juvenile Sasquatch sitting there, kind of not jumping up and down, but kind of making an up and down motion, very excited, like it was having fun pinging these rocks at her. So yeah. But she took it. And the funny thing is I got to hear the interview with her mom, who said, yeah, I remember her coming in that day and, all excited, saying, I saw this little monkey, throwing rocks at me. And we're like, what? But yeah, she took the polygraph test and passed. And then finally there was another gentleman who remained anonymous because he's a biologist, I believe, for the state of New York. Who, when he was a teenager, was out parking out near someplace we call the Iron Bridge out there in Whitehall. And the Iron Bridge actually connects Whitehall, the village of Whitehall, or not the village, but the town of Whitehall. And you go over the bridge and now you're in Vermont. and it goes under a very, very narrow part of the Pulteney River.
Yeah.
Which ends up in this little tributary, which goes up to South Bay. So there's all this waterway. You have a lot. And I'll just click the graphic. Well, that's the area of Dan's encounter. And that was the direction of travel of the creature when he was driving. And although I wasn't on the other side of the road, one can imagine what he saw. And he spun the car around where it crossed in. And then he started to go over the guardrail after it, pulled his revolver. And he said, "What the hell am I doing?" So,
wow.
So he's like, "Nope, I got in there." And he sat down next to his partner and he looked at his partner. He goes, "That was some bear, eh?" And his partner looked over at him and said, "You know, that was no bear." So,
yeah.
You know, one of the coolest things I can relate was I was there the first time we got Brian together with Dan. And I remember Dan recounting a story, and Dan looked over at Brian and he goes, "In all those years, I thought you were crazy."
Oh man!
Because when Dan went public, I was very much involved with Old Man and the whole crew there, and I knew Brian, so I was actually there when Dan actually stepped forward and went public, which was really cool.
Yeah, very neat.
I'm going to just go into a couple of comments right now. Ken Parnell. I have a cop friend who had an encounter while hunting, and he said it made no threat towards him, and it looked human enough. They didn't feel good about shoot it because it looked too human to him, and that's very common. A lot of people will say they see the eyes and they just see this soul in it. And of course, in what we're going to do in the future, we're going to do the primate behavior module too. We're going to do everything about primates coming up real soon. And one of the things I tell people is that primates of one species have a very hard time harming primates of other species. That's something ingrained in us. So we look into their eyes and we see a soul. You look into the eyes of a gorilla, eyes of a chimp. You know, you see this intelligence and this soul. So people get really reluctant to do anything. Walt said, my one friend who is a retired cop had one in front of his patrol car, stopped about 20 feet from him, staring at him as if he was going to call it in.
Yeah.
I said to the one once too about shooting one, and he just said, "Well, you might get in trouble." Really? Yeah, that sentiment was they expressed, so they went around for. Okay, so there we go. Oh, I'm sorry. My girlfriend and Melissa said my girlfriend was having issues with one of her sheep. She called the game commission. They said if they didn't exist, there wasn't a problem shooting it. They didn't know how to answer that, and that's true. What we have found, what I have found, if we're talking about shooting, what I found is that it is not illegal because they are not protected. Now there's this big argument. Well, what if they're part of the the hominin side of things?
Yeah.
Then you could be arrested for homicide.
Yeah.
But in reality, that's really a thin line, because if they're genetically not 100% us, there's an issue.
Yeah.
It's not really a Homo sapien, and we are Homo sapiens. So,
we don't want anybody to shoot one.
No,
you know, I
no,
mean,
not at all.
unless it's if your life is on the line, then I can understand it. But no, we don't want anybody to shoot them. But I think if you did, I think the first one that gets shot, they'll get a free pass.
Oh, sure.
I'm pretty sure, because up until that point, you know, there's nothing to identify that they even exist.
Oh, and Melissa said she was actually talking about mountain lions.
Oh, okay. Mountain lions. Yeah.
You can plug those. Yeah, anyway.
Melissa, I think, what was it they did on South Park? If it's coming right at me, you know, just say it's coming right at me and shoot it.
Yeah. And nonetheless, it's a good topic. I actually talked about the legality of, somebody shooting upon one on America's Book of Secrets when I was on that. And it's a big question mark because they're not really a recognized animal. So, and then if they turn out to be part of the hominins, who knows? You don't know. So, anywho, moving right along here. So again, we have the anonymous witness in Monster Quest episode. He parked in the area with a girlfriend. He also took the polygraph test and took. That was the location that's on the other side. If you look at the lower picture in the lower left-hand corner, the ground on the opposite side is actually the town of Whitehall. That's the Polteny River. We're standing in Vermont at that time. This area is going to come into play as we go through the storylines here.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny because a lot of the Monster Quest stories that, one of the Monster Quest stories, a couple of them that I investigated actually, we're going to be breaking down, but we're going to see the real deal here on some of the stuff.
Beautiful area.
Yep.
Love that.
Oh yeah. Well, let me go back here a second. I just want to point out that there's a mountain to the left of this ridge in here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That mountain has the highest concentration of rattlesnakes in the Northeast. So, yeah,
I thought that looked a lot like Kentucky there.
But now, for a while they had these infectious moths that were coming in, and they had a lot of the foliage in the area was bagged off for some reason. They had these funny little purple things on them, like Chinese kites almost over the branches. And the funny thing, now the area is overrun by Amish.
We've got a lot of Amish in this area too, Steve. Really,
and I don't
know,
Amish.
Yep.
I don't know if it's Fred out there, if Fred's still out there listening, but I do have that picture of him and the remnants of the Amish horse, and that's an inside joke. It's a pretty hysterical picture, actually. But anyhow, so the area is inundated with a lot of Amish. They bought a lot of property in Whitehall proper.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is we came out here the last time, we came out here the last time we were there. There was a bunch of Amish. They were all fishing. So I was like, okay, well, whatever. But and then as soon as we came in, they took off. But I don't know if we scared them or they were just leaving. But
they want nothing to do with the English.
That's the English, right? But what they do need to do is put some poop bags behind their horses. Kind of muddles up the parking area.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And that's where okay. So if you picture that, that's where the Fred picture comes in. So okay, hello, Joey. Good to see you.
Hey,
brother.
Joey.
So anywho, okay, so we move on to July of 2003. Now, this here's the interesting thing, that in the 70s, when you had all these sightings going on around Bear Road, and that area, there was actually an apple farm on the the north side of Route 4. Route 4 travels east-west into Vermont into Fairhaven, and actually, if you travel about another 12 miles from the border, literally where Bear Road starts is right on the border, and where the incident Bear is probably, as the crow flies, 4 miles from the Vermont border. As the crow flies also, it's probably about 14 to 15 miles from where the Vermont trail cam photo was taken. And that's to the northeast, and to the southwest is Fort Ann, about 12 to 14 miles to the southwest, which is where a lot of the stuff we're going to be covering too in a little bit happened. But for now, in 2003 to about 2008, there was a flap going on again in Whitehall. The interesting thing is that the apple orchards that were on the north side of Route 4 over the years are all gone. Now there's an apple orchard, a rather large apple orchard on the south side of Route 4. And the flap begins on the south side of Route 4 now. So originally it was up there, now it's on the other side. This is, however, is not. This was actually very close to where this is within a half mile of where Dan Gordon had his sighting. back in in the 80s. So here we are. Two boys are walking around the railroad tracks. They hear a hoot behind them. They turn around. They see this 8-foot thing, and it kind of just bounds up this very steep hill, and over the hill it goes and gone.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is they didn't tell their parents. They actually had told their science teacher in school, who contacted me. So that is the big crux of that matter. They were very descriptive about where it happened. Now, the funny thing about that is, people say, well, why didn't they tell the parents? Because they're playing on railroad tracks. And if anything, in this next picture, you see that this is me filming the Monster Quest back in 2008.
Yeah.
Rick Bell, we are live, brother, live.
Hey, Rick.
But this is Whitehall in 2003. 2008. And here we are filming me talking about the kids seeing this thing, and the creature was actually seen, if I can get my cursor over there, it was right about down in here. And then it kind of went up over this hill and into the wooded area on the other side. Well, about 40 seconds after we filmed this, we heard a train coming, and it was an Amtrak, and it barreled through there doing about 90 miles an hour.
Oh, man.
Now I can understand why they didn't tell their parents while they were playing on the railroad track. Not good.
Well, I mean, they were probably busted after this episode of Monster Quest if mom and dad were watching.
Well, the funny thing is I never talked to the kids. I only talked to the teacher, and there's a good reason, because that is, I didn't need to. The directions were that good. This is where they were.
Right.
This is where they live. This is the area it happened in. The nearest, and there's a little dirt road on the other side where there's some camps.
Yeah.
Now, one of the camps, the closest camp, has been abandoned. It's no longer a camp. It's closed up. But so Rick Bell says, "Yo."
Yo.
And hello, Adam. How are you, brother?
Hey, Adam.
And Joey asked, have I investigated any dogman sightings? No, I actually have not. I actually did the Bishopville, South Carolina, Dixie Rawson lizard man sighting investigation, which was a dog. That was a dog. Wasn't a dog man. It was a pit bull, I believe.
Not a dog man, but a dog.
A dog. Yeah. Well, that whole thing is a little bit of a mess, but I kind of figured when see, this is how easy it was to figure out. I knew it was a dog before they even DNA. The results of the DNA test on the blood on the car came back, which came back as candid. Here's the thing about the Rawson lizard man. They never really saw it, but they had their car all chewed up and whatnot.
Right.
And it wasn't made with tool marks. That was the first thing I wanted to make sure that this was a legitimate bite in a car. And I'm looking at the bite marks, and they're round, and that's a canid. That's not, because lizards are actually rectangular. Their teeth marks are rectangular once they get their chompers in there. Kind of spreads things out like that. Well, here's the funny thing is that the Rawsons didn't have a little, cat hotel. They had a cat condominium next to their house, and there were cats everywhere. I mean, I'm not just talking about 5, 6. I'm talking about 18, 19, 20 cats.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So what I asked them to do was I asked them to lift a hood on the vehicle. And sure enough, in one of the header bolts, there's cat hair.
Yeah.
So what happened was, I was like, well, that's easy. The cat got under there and hid while the dog's trying to get at it. And that's why they did it. Yeah. So
perfectly rational explanation.
Right. So no lizard man. Sorry, it was an overzealous dog. And that solved that. So anyway, here we are back to Whitehall in 2008 when when 2003 when I'm investigating this. And I had gotten out there like less than a week after the sighting. I was there, bang. Yeah. And actually at the time, it was kind of funny because I had an appointment with the Albany Times Union. Wanted to do a a story on me, and I had one area I was going to go up the Buck, which is one of my research areas, but I ended up instead, since this was fresh and new, I decided to do this one.
Right.
So as we're going there, I'm driving up there, explaining to her, well, what are you looking for? And, well, I'm looking for, tracks, of course, down trees with a twist.
Yeah.
Usually lower towards the base. Broken branches above the 5 foot, 5'6", 5'7" level.
Right.
Something that large is going through, basic tracking stuff. And any other strange anomalies. Well, as we're going there, all of a sudden she goes, hey, and I'm searching the higher ground at this point. Right. And as I'm searching the higher ground, she's kind of looking down into the little valley that's there. She goes, hey, is that what you're looking for? And I looked at it, I'm going, well, that's a tree broken off very low to the ground, extremely low to the ground. So I got a little closer, and I got a little closer, and there was a twist. As you can see, the twist in that was all twisted. Now, this little sucker here. Now, mind you, the tree has a diameter of maybe about 4 or 5 inches, and it's broke very low to the ground.
Right.
So I took my finger, and I took this little one right here, and I bent that back as hard as I could, trying to break it off, and it went boing right back up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So whatever that was pretty strong that did that. Yeah. But it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. So off to the about 15 feet to the, let me just get my bearings, 15 feet to the east of that, or to the northeast of that, I should say. Now, mind you, there was a little bit of a bog there, or at least it was. It kind of dried up because it was a dry week. We're talking, this is the time is off by 12 hours, by the way. My for whatever reason, was shooting a military time. It was actually 9:48 a.m. and this was actually was August 17th, 2003. And I noticed this bog, and it's dried out, and there's all leaves. So I see this big impression in the leaves, and you can see little partial impressions going around too. And as I peeled those leaves back, look what I found.
Yeah.
And I remember the reporter going, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Like, what the leaves did was they preserved the print in the mud, so it didn't wash away, actually, which was a good thing. And you can even see that more prevalent in that picture.
Right.
And at the time, this is before I used a Keystone rod. I was kind of a noob. At this point, I'd only been at it for 4 years, and guess what I forgot, because I was so excited the reporter was coming with me. I forgot the bloody plaster of Paris.
Your casting kit.
Well, that was the last time I made that mistake. So that was the last time I made that mistake. But nonetheless, these pictures are great. You can even see big toe, little toe, boom, boom, boom.
Right. And the toes are evident right there. Yeah.
Yep. So that was really impressive. So the kid's story had merit. And you think about it in conjunction to where Dan Gordon's sighting was, it was like, wow, this is phenomenal. I remember the reporter was blown away. And I'm sure if I had peeled that whole thing away, I'm probably sure I could have found some more prints. But that was a really cool print. My first ever print find. Whoops, I know this thing is skipping ahead on me. Hang on a second. Really cool. Would it be a great area to stake out? Probably not. Because it's really actually on the other side of the railroad tracks. There's like this little suburban neighborhood, but you have this little crop, so it was just kind of skirting the outside of the wildlife area, and on the other side there's a marsh. The funny thing is last year, the end of 2018, there was a rash of sightings not very far from there in Essex County, which is just about 4 or 5 miles north of there. So yeah, I mean that whole area is kind of
But
good territory,
mm,
consistent.
most all these things are occurring within 10 or 12 miles of an apple orchard, right?
Well, a lot of them are, yeah, a lot of them are, and I mean, but the food source there is so abundant because
Mm-hmm.
you have the waterway there, you
Right.
have the orchards, you have cows, you have deer, a lot of
Right.
deer, bear even. It's kind of funny. In 2006, and this one's not on this program, but in 2006 also we investigated very shortly after when I'm going. Well, let me step off on that. But one of the investigations that I'm going to be showing you, we actually did find bear scat, but it had nothing to. When these two kids drew the drawing, or we took them separately, interviewed separately, and they had both said something very interesting, and I'll get to that. But
Okay.
let's move on to this one for now. The Fort Ann cast. This was taken in November of 2006. So really a lot of activity going on in 2006. 2003 was just a precursor. 2006, it just, it was a busy 3 months, 4 months. This was something I was up in Research Area 1, what I call Research Area 1, which we will be talking more about in a bit. And we hear this thing moving about after doing some tree knocks, some calls. Bill Brand was out at the parking lot and he heard a vocalization, kind of like a groan or howl.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, boom, the incredible smell hits us. Bang. Like I said, skunk, death, garbage, musky, wet doggish, and it came.
Yeah.
And you got to understand, I was a paramedic for 8 years. And
Yeah.
I've been in houses where there have been bodies for a couple of weeks. I've been to
Yeah.
murders. I've been to suicides. I've been to where bodies haven't been discovered for a while.
Yeah.
And nothing smelled like this I smelled. This is the
Right.
first time I've ever smelled it and the only time. And it came as quick as it left. Bang, bang.
Yeah.
So anyway, find that, as we one of the things you do as a squatcher is you go up and down the trails. And then I'm doing the trail walks, I'm looking up, down, and the reason why I'm looking up is because I'm looking for those tree breaks. I'm
Right.
looking for those tree breaks to where something large is tracked, not tree twists or tree bends or anything, ridiculous. I'm not looking for tree structures or the big X's or anything like that. I'm looking as a tracker. I'm looking to see if something large enough had walked through an area.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one of the other things we do too is as we go up the trail, we're looking for track. We're looking to make sure there is no track. That way, when we come back, we do the same thing. And we heard this thing moving around. We could actually hear it walking around us. And where I was standing, I was facing to the east.
Yeah.
And I could hear it walking around me to my left, which was to the north of me. And then it disappeared. You could actually hear it walking. So after it left, we said, okay, it's getting dusky. Let's get the night equipment. So as we're coming out after we hear this to get the night equipment, as we're scanning the trail, we see this perpendicular to the trail.
Mm-hmm.
So what we end up doing is casting it.
Yeah.
This later will become known as the Fort Ann cast. And there it is in all its glory, the Fort Ann cast. Kind of weird because it's got this funky middle toe, which is, in talking with Dr. Meldrum, is very normal.
Mm-hmm.
Both Dr. Meldrum and the late Dr. John Bindernagel have looked at this track. And, oh, yeah, Dr. Bindernagel looked at it and was like, oh, yeah, this is, one would worry because it's flat-footed, but Sasquatch are flat-footed. They have no arch.
Mm-hmm.
Right from the words of Dr. Bennett. So I'm like, okay, cool. So anyway, we come back the next morning when it's light out, and there's the trackway.
Right.
And what you can't see is there's track here, which is where I start my tape.
Yeah.
There's another track there. There may be, I don't see any step there, but then I see another track here. This is going uphill out of a grade of about 25 to 30 degrees. So it's pretty steep.
Yeah.
And mind you, this is a 6.5 foot tape. So you have 1, 2, 3 steps and 6.5 feet. So you're talking uphill.
Yeah.
So you're talking, about 3 foot astride. That's going uphill. That's pretty damn good.
Yes, it is.
So, and as you can see, very heavy. Very heavy.
Yeah.
As you can see, the grade is steeper. The grade kind of gets greater as you go up the hill. So the grade isn't as steep here and here. But once it starts to really, from here, it's probably maybe a 20 degree, and then it gets up to 25 to 30 here. So it's a little steeper, and bang, bang.
Right.
So very, nothing really castable there. So we didn't cast it. We had a real good cast out of the other ones. So, but as you can see, I did take a measurement on the print, and it matches up with the track that we got the night before we cast. So that is, just just showing if anybody if you're going in the field, I know a lot of people use a tape measure. And the one thing that I'll show you real quick is you see the difference between a tape measure and a tape measure. Really, it doesn't stand out to you how long it is.
Yeah.
But when you use the Keson rod, which is the item I use, it's KESON. It's made for photographs.
Right.
And you can tell that's right there. It's a little over 14 and a half, almost 15 inches long.
Yeah.
Because it stops at the foot, 1 foot, 1 inch, 1 foot, 2 inch, 1 foot, 3 inch. And that's how they number that. So when you look at something like this, I can take a look at this rod and go, from the white to the black is 1 foot. From the black to the white is 1 foot. That's another foot. That's another foot. That's another foot. That's another foot.
Yeah.
That's another foot.
Sticks out a lot better than a measure.
Right. So, and you'll be seeing that tape here in a little bit too. So that's a real, oh, Jimmy. Hello, Jimmy. You missed your Charlie. You missed your Charlie Wonton segment again. I'll have to send you the video, what I did with it. It was pretty good. But so you have that's what I love about that little piece. And the other thing is you can pull it out of its sleeve and you can stand it up and you can move it around. It's a great tool to have. Use it as a private investigator to measure photo. Somebody has a dent in the car. I put that up against it. So it's a real good tool.
That Keson stick is also a really good thing to have if you're tracking, because a lot of times when you're walking through the woods, especially when you got a lot of litter, you might lose the trail. But if you know what the stride is, you lay that stick down from the last print that you can clearly see and move it around until you find the next track, and then keep going in that direction. Very handy tool to have.
Yep. And Joey Lowell comes as getting back to the smell. I think Sasquatch can control their smell, and I say this because when I saw my first one, I was 12 feet from it, and I did not smell anything, nor did I see red eyes, but I did hear and feel its growl. Yeah. Goodness. One of the things that John, and I'll hang on. We'll talk about that in a second too.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Because there's more points on that. So I love the conversation we got going. And I thank everybody for their comments. People on YouTube. Yeah. Hey, do me a favor. People on YouTube listening, you like what you're seeing, give me a thumbs up, please, on the video. It really helps. So if you like what you're seeing, give me a thumbs up. That way we know we're doing the right thing. So let's keep on keeping on. So anyway, now we move to 2006. This was the month previous to this going on, was Whitehall, New York, October 2006. We have 2 sightings within 50 feet of one another within a half hour. Total of 5 witnesses, 3 girls aged 18 to 21. Their portion was covered on the Monster Quest episode that I was on back in 2008. The second part was two gentlemen. One of them had just came back from Iraq, active service in Iraq. So very, very grounded kid. I call him a kid because I'm, my age, and at the time he was, well, of course now he's older. He's in his 30s now. Back then he was in his 20s.
When you get to be an old man, everybody's a kid, Steve.
I remember the day I had to go to school in my bare feet, 2 miles. 2 miles. There was no bus stop. Damn it.
That's right.
Stay off the lawn.
Get out of my yard, kids.
Stay off the lawn. Anyway, you want to know something funny? Just a side story on that. I remember I had went after this guy for stealing a bunch of crap from a store, cigarettes, I think. And this guy was, he had been caught like a dozen times. That's why, as soon as he walked in, I go, oh shit, here we go. Well, anyway, he literally ran up the road, and I got him. I grabbed him. I got him up against the wall. I'm snapping the cuffs on him in this person's yard, and some old lady walks up. Get off the lawn. I look. I go. I got him. I just cuffed him, and I spun him around and lifted the cuffs up. And the guy's like, "Oh!" I go. Does it look like I'm doing something here, ma'am?
Get off the lawn.
Yeah, that shut her up. Yeah, he's in handcuffs. Look. No.
Oh man!
And then all of a sudden, this big 6'5" guy gets out of the car. It was kind of funny. This big 6'5" guy comes over. He goes, "You need help?" "No, I'm good. I got him wrangled up." He goes, I'm Schenectady County Corrections Officer. And he looks down at the guy. And mind you, this guy's only about 5'6". Looks down at the guy. He goes, "I guess I'll be seeing you tonight." And the guy's like, "Yeah."
Man. Dang it. All for cigarettes and a bunch of crap.
Well, cigarettes equals drugs.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's true.
Yeah. Anyway, so moving on to the sighting. So they're having this party up on a hill, which is what kids do in Whitehall, and they were adults. And so they're all up on the public hill, all parked at the gun club. They parked the gun club, walked up the hill. There they are, just having a good time. They got a fire going. They're not a rowdy bunch. They're not troublemaking bunch. They're all clean cut, just kids. Spending some time together.
Yeah.
And the three girls decide, okay, we're gonna go. So as they're walking down the path, and we're going to show the path here in a second, they encounter something standing in the path about 7.5 feet tall, completely black silhouetted. So they really couldn't see any facial features. They didn't have lights with them. And they just heard it go.
Oh.
And that was in response to them going, "Who's there? Who's there? Who's there?" So they turned around and ran back up the hill. Screaming. So the two gentlemen decide, okay, we're going to walk to Carol's down, see what's going on. So as they're walking them down the hill, they notice this is the end of the path. They notice that, well, this tree wasn't pulled in front of the path then. When they came up, the path was there. So something had placed that tree in the path while they were up on the hill. Kind of curious. I've heard stories in the past of people doing of them perhaps doing that to horse trails. And there's a gentleman that I knew that was an avid horseback rider who had some sighting experience, including, and he says that all of a sudden these trees are and they're not broken off and broken down. They're actually broken off someplace else and dragged. So I found that quite interesting that here's this tree sitting there that wasn't down before, wasn't a windy night, wasn't no weather to necessarily make that happen.
Right.
So as the boys, when I click, it only goes forward. I got to use my keyboard. These damn minutia things. So anyway, the boys escort the girls to their cars, to the road, watch the girls go into the parking lot, which is across the street and a little bit to the left of where you're looking at there, where the gun club's on the other side of the road. Mm-hmm. So obviously you're talking about a rural area because they have a gun club. So, so the two boys go, "Hey, let's go check out what they may have seen." So they go back up the hill And what ends up happening is out of the corner of his eye, the army guy that came back from Iraq goes, "Do you see that over my right shoulder?" What it was it was crouched down, and it was about 5 feet tall, crouched down behind a shrub. It was kind of hiding on them.
Yeah.
So they just kind of turned around and got out of there, but they were kind of laughing because that was their reaction to being scared. Was we laughed like, "Holy crap, what the hell was that?"
Right.
And that was it. So I started tracking it, and from the area where they had seen it crouched down, I had actually followed the line of broken trees. And there's our Keeson rod again. And here's a break of 5 foot, about 5'10" and a half, or 5'9" and a half right there.
Yeah.
So this is something that's not a deer, not a bear, because they would probably be around the 5.5 foot level, maybe even the 5'3" level if they were coming through. So I actually followed these tree breaks. There's another one, and that one is actually at the 5'10" level. It's hard to see. Yeah. I know there's a lot of brush, but that was one was right in there. And then this one's a lot more clear. This one's at the 6'3" level. Yeah. And I actually followed the entire path right down to the road, which, if you can see, there's a power line right there. And that goes down into the gully where the road is. And there was a clear-cut brush clearing. You could see where it had walked in the brush and right to the road, and that's where it. And there it is, gone. So, and Joey also said that he's had them trees and logs put on trails after I went up them and find them coming back down. Yep, exactly. Yeah, right on. So that's what I call some corroborative evidence that, you know, you can't always find a track. You can't always find, but you can say, is this a real sighting or is this not a real sighting? And there seems to be some evidence in there that would indicate that everything there said is the truth. No reason not to believe them. They were not looking for publicity. They were not looking to be celebrities. They just told their story and faded back into existence because, you know, they were relatives of Dan Gordon, and they were like, we want to tell our story because this is what we encountered. And, you know, there was 3 other witnesses that were not Gordon relatives. So they, you know, they were like, yeah, this is what happened. And it was really freaked us out. And, you know, we didn't really think about it. Yeah. And have a good night, Cryptidville. So yeah, really a cool thing. So in 2009, and this is kind of funny because I didn't see it until 2010. Frank goes to good old Frank. Hey, did you see my cast? Yeah, it was the same character that I had. Same character, just a different toe splay. Now, when a lot of people don't know is when we look at tracks, there's 3 measurements we always look at, and that's heel toe, heel width, and toe splay. And this is another way. This is how I debunked the Liston Truesdale, Sheriff Liston Truesdale, who took Lizard Man footprints back in the 80s when that flap first started. Right. Every single toe splay was different. Now, when you look at a track like this, the heel width should be the same amongst 2 tracks. The heel toe should be the same, but the toe splay should be different because as the naked toes, hit the ground, depending on the hardness of the substrate, will either push those toes apart or keep them narrowed together. In this case, if you look, the toes are very well more defined than mine were, but the toe splay is actually larger, which means more substrate got in between those toes. And if you look at even the casting, you can see where the toes are kind of, you know, there's
really smooth.
There's substrate in between the toes.
Yeah.
That's sand, that's dirt, that's whatever that soft mud was, or whatever, wherever he was, he cast that in. So when you have that, the toe splay was much different. It was bigger, but the heel width, and there's a lot of overcast on this, but the heel width was the same as was the heel toe. If you look, this cut's right about the same. So what you have here is, now here's the other thing. You have this weird middle toe, which again, as Dr. Meldrum says, does occur, right? And you also have this is 2006, you have a callus. Something that was on the foot that was pushing in. Well, you notice it's right there too.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So what you have is a less of a bump there now, right?
Yeah.
So what happened was it's come down or worn off a bit since then. So very interesting. What it does is it's scientific evidence that proves it's a biological.
Yeah.
So now we get to part of the program. Well, actually, I want to mention in 2006, also it was the summer of 2006, I believe it was August, we investigated another sighting off of Bear Road, just prior to the Winters Road sighting, which is the one with the 5 kids. And the real interesting thing about that whole situation was that the 2 boys that had seen it, now we went up and looked around and we found, bear scat. So we're thinking, could this be a bear? Meanwhile, Bill Brand was interviewing him, and separately, he interviewed one and then he interviewed the other. And these kids were young. They were 11 years old.
Yeah.
And when we had talked to Bill said that both of the kids very oddly said that this thing had breasts. Stood up, walked away on 2 feet, had breasts. They said it wasn't, they said it was maybe about 7 foot tall, maybe a little bit smaller, but they said that it had breasts. And that was very interesting. So who knows?
Well, that's the thing. Young boys are going to be looking for boobies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they were not quite. They were not quite pubescent boys. They were pre-pubescent.
Not that age yet, but they noticed.
No, they were still more interested in playing cowboys and Indians or guns in the woods or whatever, and then they were. Yep. So 2011. So in 2010, I had been brought to my research area 1 by a gentleman by the name of John Weitzel. John and his wife went off trail, and they had encountered something that had screamed at them numerous times over, and actually had escorted them. And he could see it moving a little bit out of the corner of his eye, but could never really get a good focus on it because it was off in the woods about 100 feet or so. And if it's hard to see a clear shot in the woods when in a dense forest.
Right.
Now, John, very level-headed guy, very big outdoorsman, had been going to that area for all his life. Never heard anything like this. And he mentioned, strangely, that when you screamed, you could feel it in your chest. It was like that much of a roar.
Right.
So as this goes on, he exits the thing. After a while, they knew they were being escorted. So it was very aggressive. So that piqued my interest, because aggressiveness, as we will learn in later episodes, that primate behavior, aggressiveness equals you're in its territory. That's its home. So they must have strayed off somewhere, and that's what was going on. Now, in 2010, we had gotten a lot of audio, and it was a very small group. It was me and maybe a couple other people going up, very small groups. And a couple of times when we left camp, particularly this one particular episode, you hear something walking up and you hear this growl. And then you hear the receding of the leaf. So something had walked up into her camp and growled and then walked out. Very strange, but it wasn't like a dog growl. And I learned something too. Bears do not growl. Bears do not growl. I did not know that. They bay, but they don't do that. Did not know that. But you have something there that this growl did not sound like anything I've heard before. Just like it was more like and then you hear this, the very slow movement out. So in 2011, we had, not to mention 2010, we heard a lot of things walking around us, but we had just some great audio. We got some rock clacking. We got some whoops. We got even a tree knock. Just standing around talking, and you hear off in the distance, and the recorder caught it. You can tell it's at a distance. Very distinct. But in 2011, we ran another mission, and actually, I mentioned it in the film, but John Weitzel's in the background, and well, I'll just let you watch the film, and so enjoy. Here we go. In my entire life, all I wanted was one look at this magnificent creature. In October of 2011, in the Adirondacks, we initiated a team mission in what we called Research Area Number 1. The original witness, John Weitzel, who brought me to this location some 11 years earlier, can be seen in the background, as this would be, sadly, his last Bigfoot mission, succumbing to brain cancer not 5 months later. Little did I know that this would be the first time I laid my eyes on one of these creatures without any night vision or thermal aids. The previous year, we had some interesting audio. This just verified it. Make sure we all partner up with somebody. If we're going to go out in teams. We're going to do a lot of standing around tonight listening as well. Because this is a very easy place to get yourself backwards. If you're in this side of the road, that is west, this is east. You have a compass, I know.
I got a compass in my bag.
Okay.
I didn't bring mine.
Okay.
Sorry.
So direction, if you do get turned around the woods, is east, due east for the road. And it'll land you anywhere on the road. If you're on that side, obviously it's due west. But for now, we're going to concentrate on this side. Their territory is down this side. So we're pretty good on that. I'm trying to think, any safety issues, get a radio. Radio it in.
Also, but like
let me go over some of the natural animals in here, or the known animals in here. Of course, I've been coming up here 11 years. I haven't seen a bear, but that doesn't exclude the possibility of there be a black bear tooling around. If you guys by yourself and do not have defense weapons like a bear spray, walk loud, walk proud. That's the best way I can say it, because that'll keep the bad animals away, and it won't keep the squatches away, because they'll be interested in hearing what's going on and seeing what's going on. That's the one thing difference between these kind of animals, is that a squatch is curiosity. It's a primate. We're all curious. We hear an explosion, we all go look to see what that explosion is. Same thing with the squatches. That's because it's our primate nature. Other animals like bears, deer, coyotes, they hear an explosion, they go the other way. So that's just walk loud and proud. OP1 status report.
We're code 4. We're walking the southwest end. We're down by the creek bed. Over.
Okay, roger that. Don't go farther than that creek bed. Hold the line there. I want you guys get turned around in there. Hold the line there. That's the exact same area where Gary and I had that little incident there last month. So, in the right area. Night's young yet, too. It's only 8 o'clock. So we've only been at this. My guess is that they've been probably keeping an eye on us the whole time we've been out there. When we went down, probably stirred them up a little bit. We came back up. They came in. They're keeping their distance, but they're slowly creeping in because we've receded. That's the whole idea of receding, giving them time to come in. And let the technology do the work. Like I said, we got the perimeter technology right there. Hopefully it'll catch something. Last time we used digital recorders, it was beautiful, but we got rain, so might be a little bit noisy. But we shall see. Dude, what the fuck was that? I just saw it too. It was down there, right there. It was right there.
It just moved and went that way.
Yeah.
It just went that way. So right.
Yeah.
There was eye shine right there, and then sorry, and then boom, it was right. There's that freaking tree.
I caught.
You saw, that's what you were
It
seeing.
was red eye
It
shine.
was red. It was red. It went that way.
Everybody stay put. No lights, no movement, no. Oh shit! What? I just had a rock thrown at me. Oh fuck! All right. All right. Going back in.
Once we got to the creek bed, we were lights out, quiet, and then we heard rustling in the weeds, or you know, and then we heard a thump, a low thump. Was that right?
Yeah.
And then we got the dish out. She hooked it all up, and Stacy got a hold of it, and she heard a grunt. So she gave it to me. I pointed in the right direction, the same direction. It was slightly off from where she heard it, and then I heard it, and then I handed it to Amy.
All right. So does anybody have any doubts what we're dealing with?
Like you said to begin with, we wouldn't be here.
Oh, I understand. All right. So nobody got the creeped out feeling, but nobody got close. We kind of spread out, and we all got hit with something.
Mm-hmm. Multiple at the same time.
Pretty much at the same time. I had a rock thrown at me, it landed right at my foot, and then I got like a feeling like I was being, I don't know, just a anxiety feeling.
Just surrounded.
Gary, at the same time, had a very similar thing. And Mike got a headache that was gone like within a few minutes. He started getting a headache when it hit. He got back here and it went away. So what I think we're dealing with considering is that these are just effects of infrasound, and we're getting some pretty good results. And the beautiful thing is the ones we were dealing with all kind of corralled themselves down into where we put the camera trap and the recorders. Now it's really quiet. So the whole idea now is to let's just chill for a little bit, smile, let's laugh, let's have a good time. Let it go for a little bit, let them get comfortable with us being here again, and they'll be back. Mm-hmm. Because that's their nature. So, and then when we if we need to redeploy, we will. If we don't need to redeploy, we won't. But I think that's a good forward game plan for now. Everybody just chill out for a minute. It's early yet. It's only 8:45. We've been doing this. We deployed at 7:45.
Yes, it was.
Exactly. So within less than an hour, we've had all this movement going around. This is exactly what they do. They're coming in to check us out, and you know they see who it is, what it is. They move out. We got a little close. You know, our guest here says that he thinks we freaked him out, and because he's been hearing a little, you know, actually a pretty quick ruffle down there. So I think all in all, yeah, I know there's one behind us that's been circling.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe that's what we heard because we went back out to the car,
right,
out to the road,
yep.
And you can hear,
and I can hear the whistles now.
Yep.
I was hearing that on the dish, and then there was a low guttural noise, and you could hear walking on the other side of the road.
So I think all in all, yeah, I know there's one behind us that's been circling.
Mm-hmm.
This was standing right to the right of the telephone pole.
Okay.
And it was standing literally, I'm going to put the bottom edge of the beam, how tall it was off the ground, about there. And I can see the eyes, and then it just turned around. I can just see it move back, and then it turned around up again in there, looking back down this way, and then it turned around again and proceeded.
Yeah.
backed up over near the outhouse. Yeah, it was definitely taller than you. I'd say by about 2 feet.
That makes it 8 feet.
Yeah, it was. Well, maybe. Now you're standing there. Shine your light.
Look at my face.
Okay, that's your face. Yeah, I'd say maybe foot and a half taller, maybe 2 feet at most. So somewhere between 7 and 8 feet.
Roger that. See if you see the signs good.
We're getting heavy activity over here at the fire. All right, send them on out. I'm going to post them due north of our location.
Seeing if we see any imprints here.
Far away out. Junior Stacy, do you have a radio?
Yeah, we're on our way out.
Yeah, it said it crossed straight across. So.
Step up.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Unless right there.
Okay, team one up there.
Okay.
OT1.
Look at that.
Make sure your lights are out. No white light, no red light, no nothing. Just go dark.
Right here.
That looks. Roger, I'm OP1.
Right here's a ledge where you just can't walk up, you guys.
Roger that. We're looking for sign right now, and I think we might have.
You could have just walked right up here,
We
though.
might have seen a scrape here, but I'm not
Unless
sure.
that's a print.
Roger that. Let's just hunker down and we're pushing and through it.
Yeah, it does.
And
So you just
show your lights. We're going to try something.
Roger that.
Roger that.
Well, there you have it, folks. That was
My
my
entire life.
Oops.
All I wanted was
Hang on. Yeah, there we go. That was my my sighting. And you know, it's kind of funny when I was putting this video together. I didn't remember talking at the fire necessarily. I always watched that one clip that I had of, you know, where I was telling my story, and you can see my eyes were like big and wide. I was shook up. But the listening to me talking about at the fire, yeah, I know we got one behind us circling about us.
Yeah.
And that was the one that had to have been. And
Yeah.
If you listen to the reaction, well, there was one radio reaction where you heard Gary at the camp saying, "Hey, we got some action down here going on." And that's the direction it went in. And then the when I looked at the video, it was like, wow, they never told me. They said something about it. I didn't really see it because I was busy coordinating people, getting them in place.
Right.
And and then when I looked at the video, my God, there is the cut in the dirt. I didn't realize they caught that on film.
Yeah.
But it was just what an incredible night that was. We had all this movement, and then to call it like, hey, something's going on. And what it was doing is, of course, that time of year, all the leaves have dropped already in New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what it was doing, it was probably standing there watching our fire from the roadway, because that roadway hardly anybody travels at night. It's a dirt road. So to me, it was like, it was just an amazing evening. It was, wow.
Well, personally, I love footage like that because that makes me feel like I'm out there with you. I feel like I'm on expedition watching that. I love that.
Well, there's going to be a lot more to come of that. So, and it's going to be recent stuff because when we go out, we're going to be filming all the time. So that's why I got all the camera gear and then, a lot of my guys that are on the team now, of course, now I have almost 100% new team from that team.
Right.
And we are gear heavy. We are tech heavy. So we have a lot of cameras rolling. We have a lot of recorders rolling when we go out. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And do they hear those Roger beeps? I really don't think they care. You got to understand, primates are a curious lot. They are. They hear something, they want to investigate it. And you got to remember, we're the Sasquatch's entertainment. Primates need mental stimulation. They need brain stimulation. We just can't sit there and look off into the sky and be content. We got to be on a device. We got to be reading something. We got to be thinking about something. We got to be, something.
Yeah.
And
I think when they're hearing those beeps, the Roger beeps from the walkie-talkies.
Amen, Joey.
A deer or something is probably going to be going, hey, that's a sound I've never heard before. Run,
Yeah.
But a primate is going to be saying, hey, that's a sound I've never heard before. Let's go see what it is.
Right. And that like I said, one of the comments I make there, you walk loud and proud. Because they're not intimidated by that. Bears will go, black bears anyway, not so much the grizzlies. But if you have food discipline, odor discipline, and you start walking around making noise like that, especially when you have several people, the bears are going to go the other way, and so are the yotes, and so are the deer. So we and all the time, and all the times I've been out there, the only time I've actually seen a deer is either when I'm driving out or when I'm getting up in the tent the first morning. And I get out and there's one standing up like on a hill eating something. That was the only time I've actually seen a deer out there. There's field mice out there and they run around and you can hear them little pitter patters. No squirrels, very little squirrel. There may be raccoon out there. I don't know. I haven't seen really much animal out there, which is kind of a curiosity. A lot of birds. In fact, one time I had a barred owl fly about 15 feet over my head, and it perched in a tree above my head, and then it decided to throw out a call that was about 750 decibels, and made me jump out of my boo, 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 boo. I'm like, what the flip? Can you keep it down up there, please? But yeah, it's just an awesome area, and that's my beliefs, and what people don't understand is I put them to the test in 2010, in 2011, in 2012, 2013, and it worked. It got results. You can't stalk them. You can't sneak in there.
No, there's different research methods that people use. And I think, Steve uses the common one to where you go in there and you make some noise and let them come to you, make them curious, and they'll come in there and see what's going on. But there are other researchers that, they'll take a bath with this liquid dirt, you deer hunter guys, you know what I'm talking about. And then they'll put on a camouflage suit or a ghillie suit and take a camera and go sit in the woods somewhere, and they're going to try to hide from these things. But I believe that they're the hide and seek champions, and there's no way you're going to be able to hide from them. They're going to know you're there regardless how good you are. They're going to know.
Well, so regardless of what you think of her, I mean, but I used to have a lot of conversations with Autumn Williams, and Autumn made a real good observation. She says, you always have to make them feel like they're in charge. Yeah. And that's what I do. That's the whole idea. Hey, Russell Accord. Hello, Russell. Good to see you here, man.
Hey, Russ.
One of the things I've learned is that, you can't go charging after them. They're going to outrun you. They're going to hide on you. You have to let them think. And what I use is subterfuge. Make some noise. I mean, how many times do we have reports and sighting reports of people at a campfire, women putting laundry out, kids playing in the yard, and then off in the distance on the tree line, that's where they're observed because they're watching you.
Yeah.
And that's exactly that night on 2011. That's exactly what that sumbitch was doing. He was watching me. Or he was watching the whole group. Now, I'll give you another example. This happened in 2013 real quick. And I remember we sent the teams out. And I remember that night particularly because I walked down the road with Stacy at the time. And we were being paralleled on both sides of the road. Now, for 2011, I felt like there was 3 of them running around. Ah, really? Wow.
How would she know that?
Yeah, good question. How would you know what a Bigfoot dick smells like?
Okay, well, anyway. Family show, family show. Oh, but
Well, anyway, wow. So anyway, so how would you where was I after that comment? So gotta love the trolls. But that was a great comment. How would you know that?
the train of thought went off the rails.
It did. Well, you really did it. I was staying on course, and then you had to say, "How do you know what it smells like?" Like, that's pretty funny. That's really funny.
Oh man! So we were talking about being on expedition, and we were talking about the.
Oh. Melissa goes, "Lord, you broke him." Yeah, well, you know what happens? She turned my train of thought into a train wreck of thought.
Okay.
But anyway, so we're sending the teams out. This happened in 2013. Sending the teams out, stationing, and we felt like we were being paralleled on both sides of the trail. Yeah. So I sent my son out with his buddy and Ted. And they went down the road. They came back and said, Jesus, same thing happened. It feels like we're being followed on both sides of the road.
Yeah.
So we sent the teams out. I said, all right, this time, Stacey and I are just going to sit in camp. And we sat there and perfectly quiet. And within about 10 minutes, hang on a second. You're going to see this in a minute. So 10 minutes, all of a sudden we hear something come really falling through the trees. We could hear it going. And it was a rock. Something had thrown a rock. And hang on a second. And so what ended up, this is the actual rock right here.
Oh, you kept it?
Yeah. I found it. I mean, it was the only rock around.
Right.
I mean, there it is. And I don't know where the hell it got it from, but it fell within 10 feet of the, within 10 feet of us. And I could hear it. And I kind of saw the little movement, and I got up and I picked it up. And that's the rock.
Dude, if that would have hit you in the head, you wouldn't be doing the show today. That's a heck of a rock, dude.
Either that or I'd be wearing a hockey helmet. Yeah. But Jesus. Yeah. So the rock itself weighs about 3 pounds. So it's a good size rock, 3, maybe 4 pounds. Yeah, it was just really, really weird. What can you say? I don't think it meant to hit us. What I think they do is, in this particular case, it was just looking to see if it would get a reaction. Once it got the reaction, then I realized, okay, somebody's still there. I think that there was no reaction, it might have thrown another one, or it might have actually walked into the camp and looked around and then walked out. Because like I said, in 2010, we had left camp and left the recorder going, and we heard something walk in, make a grunt, and then leave.
Right.
So you tend to take, field notes on this stuff after a period of time, and you understand, and once you get that done, you're always saying, okay, well, if I try this, what if I try that? And you try these little psychological experiments. So I think the subterfuge thing really works. Let them feel like they're in the control. Don't intercede into their areas where you perceive as their territory. Just go outside their territory, create a ruckus, and then. And Walt, that's a good question. I really don't know where it was, because I didn't hear any walking up or anything like that. It was just like really quiet, and then all of a sudden we hear. And there's this rock. So there's not like there's a lot of rocks that size there, or any rocks at all, because there's some rocks from there's some stones for the fire pit, but this was nowhere near the fire pit.
That was a love rock. He loved you, Steve. Giving you his love rock.
No, and while that's trying to scare you off, no, I think what it was trying to do was see if we were still there because we were being absolutely quiet. We weren't saying nothing. We were just listening. And we may have been sitting in a position where it couldn't really see us. So, because kind of the direction it came from was kind of going on a downhill in front of us, the direction it came. So, I think it was down low. We couldn't really see if we were there. And it chucked the rock over there to see if we'd start moving around in reaction to it, which we did.
Yeah.
So,
and earlier too, the other researcher on there on that video we watched, Steve, talk about that foot stomp he heard.
Steve, yep.
And I think that's another way they try to get you to react. I mean, it's a similar method used by deer.
Yep.
They walk up on a deer at night, and they can't see you, but they can smell you. They know you're there, but they can't see you. They'll stomp their front leg. Of course, now with a deer, it's different. It's just like you take a stick and hit the ground. You know, it's not the. It's more or less just a rustle of leaves and a little. But now with one of these creatures, I believe, when they stomp their foot, man, you cannot duplicate it. We had that. A bunch of us guys were coyote hunting one night, and we had that happen to the whole group. We had heard a noise over near this fence row that was really grown up. And it was, listen, you know, you guys hear that? And we were all listening, and then all of a sudden we heard that big thud. I was like, what was that? Let's get out of here. And we came back to my house, and we were all out in the front yard laughing and talking and trying to duplicate it, you know, and none of us could stomp our boot on the ground and make loud stomping noise.
Yeah, it's really it's some bizarre behavior, but some of everything that I've seen those nights, I mean, I anticipated. I mean, the rock throwing I anticipated. Right. Obviously, that wasn't the first time that in 2013 when I had that rock land in the camp, wasn't the first time that happened. In fact, it actually had a smaller rock that was thrown at me, or it could have been a pine cone or whatever. We experienced that in 2008 when something was when we had two NESRA team members doing the expedition with me up in the same area. They were getting hit in the back with looked like pine cones, I believe, and that spooked the heck out of them.
Yeah.
But some people has that reaction. Me, it made me jump back in the video, but the second time I'm like, I know what you're up to. Don't try me your little trivial games.
Well, hey man, I don't care who you are. If somebody throws a rock at you, the first thing to do, the reaction is to jump and move out of the way.
Yeah.
You don't know what they were trying to do, whether they're just trying to intimidate you or was they aiming for your head, you know.
And Walt says that's as bad as the logs thrown at my nephew and me. The logs were thrown through the treetops. That is not fun. Not fun at all. Okay. So 2012 Fort Ann, this was the following year. This was the same year. This wasn't the same expedition, but this was the same year I had my juvenile sighting in the same general area. That's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that another night. But if you look at it, it's kind of a hard picture to see. But what we're looking at, of course, we're looking downhill again, remind you, is we're looking down at probably about a 15, 17, 18 degree incline here going downhill. But there's the close-up of what you're seeing. And we only got one. So I don't know if it's walking sideways. But in the next picture, and I took a series of flash pictures because we kept hearing this walking around. So I just decided to go pop, 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 pop with my camera.
Right.
And if you look, it has, you see this tree right here. That's picture number one, right? Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Let me back up. Okay. So this is picture number one, and it's to the right of the tree. And picture number two, it's now left of that tree. Now, mind you, I wasn't moving. I may have been moving my camera a little bit, but I wasn't really moving all that great. Oops.
Right.
Sorry. So now people ask, well, what's this over here? And that is dust. And believe it or not, when you blow the picture up, you can tell the dust between dust and eye shine. The eye shine gives off this luminous type of glow. So then the second picture was here, and it's actually closer, and it's pretty tall where it is.
Right. And, you know, depending on the width that the eyes are spaced, you know, the other eye might be behind that tree trunk there.
True, or it could be just the bridge of the nose. Even though they have flat noses, there's still a bridge, and it could be that it's just not reflecting and it's walking sideways. So it's moved from here in an upward direction, going this way. You know, up the hill a little bit and around. And there's the close up of that. But that's high up, and there's no reflectors, anything like that. Now, the curious thing about it, I had Stacy and Amy with me at the time, and we went down to the bottom of the hill eventually. Because I really wasn't keeping a close eye on I was looking at the picture going, damn, there's something out there. We go down the bottom of the hill, and all of a sudden I'm shining my light, and I go, the state marked off an area down here, because I see two reflectors, and those two reflectors, and all three of us saw those two reflectors turned to the left and walked away and disappeared.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, did you see that? We ran up to where it was, and it was a good 7 foot off the ground, at least. So I was like, oh. So yeah, that area was nuts for a while.
Yeah.
So, and this happened 2013 across from Whitehall. This is across from the area where the kids had the sighting, but in the same time, on the same side, back in the 60s, there's something called the Gaelic Farm. And the Gaelics reported that in the late 60s, they had one of these creatures actually up on their porch. They could hear it stomping around, very much like what happened in Boggy Creek, except for it happened before Boggy Creek. And it was stomping around. In fact, I believe it even might, rattled a doorknob or two once or twice. I got to get those stories more to the point, but I've heard, so the Gaelics were very well known to be a big believer, and so we're on that road leading to the Gaelic Farm, and there's a little cutout where you can look up and down the access bay to South Bay, where boats come off of Pulteney River, and it's a big waterway. It's dug out, so it's deep. And I've been back in there during the day, and I remember one day I actually saw this watermelon-sized rock go into the water from the other side, which is the New York side, which is very close to where the kids had their sighting, and then a little bit further on is where Dan Gordon had his sighting. So I see this rock go into the, and I actually saw the rock come out from the woods, but I couldn't see what through it. So later on that year, or a couple of years later, here we are, and it's nighttime now, and I got the team out, and one of the team members that was on, Jim, he had a FLIR. So, but he didn't have the FLIR that took video. He had the FLIR that took pictures. So I only clipped one picture for this. But basically, if you look right in here, that's unfortunately, I hate this thing there, but we actually watched this object right here. Now, mind you, and you're going to see when you see the overhead shot or the daytime shot, but we watched it approximately walk from here, over here, and into the woods somewhere in here. Now, mind you that here there is a very, very steep rocky ledge. That is probably at a 50 to 60 degree angle. It's pretty steep. In the daytime, the next morning when I went down, of course, this is the right time. It was about 9:30 on 9/25/13. And it was and that's the right time, 21:20, which is 9:20 p.m. Yeah. Mind you, there was no flashlights we could see. There was hardly any noise. We couldn't hear any noise, but we see nothing but with the naked eye. We put the FLIR up, and here's this thing going, walking right through, and you can actually see the reflection of it in the water. The heat reflection, really weird. So we watch this go from here to here into the woods. We go charging up the hill. Maybe we can catch it crossing the road or something. So we take a point up, but nothing happens. The next day when I go back, that is so steep. It takes me 20 minutes to get down the hill because it's all rock. And as you're climbing down the rock, it's also in the back of my head too that I don't want to break an ankle or turn an ankle. I don't want to grab onto a rock that's loose and go tumbling down the hill. And 3, there's a lot of loose rock, and snakes love rocks, and I'm right up the road from the biggest. So you're like, what the? Nobody in their right effing mind would be down there at 9:30 at night because it's too damn dark to get your ass up there. Now, beyond there, in this little wooded area, there's a huge marsh. So woods, and there's a huge marsh in there that covers a lot of the area between there and the wall. And there's just a little plateau that's dry land that you can, a little strip that you can get up into without having to go through the marsh. And the marsh is covered with these, 10-foot plants. So you really can't see in there too much. Really, really nasty stuff. But this is the actual area where we saw it walking. And this picture was taken the next day. From there, so you can tell it's September, so the leaves are still on the trees. The little jut is there, and the beautiful thing is, the reason why I put my team there was because we had this nice view of this area across the way, and then you turn around 180 degrees, and you got, this is going to the east. You turn around, you're going to the west, and you can see all the way down to the west. Across the road here, this is the mountain, and the top of the mountain is Skeen Mountain. On the other side of that mountain is the Skeen Valley Country Club, which is where Cliff Sparks had his sighting. Up here into the left, if you go up about 4 miles, that's where Bear Road is. If you go over here, if you start going this way, if you were to turn 90 degrees to the right, that's where, and over a little hill, that's the area where the kids had the sighting. You go a little bit to the west of that, or to the northeast of that, or northwest of that. That's where Dan Gordon had his sighting, all over on that side of the, turning 180 degrees. And the Gaelic farm, the road runs up in here, and it runs somewhere. The road runs somewhere up in here, up top. We actually have to climb up a little hill to the top of the road, and down the road to the left, traveling like behind where this picture is, that's where the Gaelic farm is. So very, very interesting area. Has produced some results in the past. Not as great as the other area, but definitely a lot of sighting reports in this area. Dodge Road, which is actually the end of Dodge Road in Whitehall, has had a couple of sighting reports. And that actually borders. Now, the tributary where I talked about the gentleman that was parked with his girlfriend, that's over in this way. You go up this road and down, and it hooks a little bit to the left, and that goes all the way up. But it was about right in here down the road a ways. And then you travel further up, and that in 2013, we also got a bunch of a very interesting vocal exchange. I'll play that for you guys sometime, just not tonight. But a lot of interesting stuff over there.
I like that area, and I really love areas near water because personally, I believe they don't get too far away from water.
No, not at all. So definitely quite the oh, sorry, just getting everything set for the finale.
That's a good looking area, Eve. I like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of good areas. You would totally flip over Resource One. I mean, that area where we had all that activity. The only unfortunate thing was there was a little bit of an interloper there a couple of years back, and he showed up there in 2014, and he kind of ruined things. Everything's been quiet there since. And I know that happens. You get somebody that wants to join your team, and then all of a sudden starts taking his personal friends up there, and his quote unquote team up there, and throws a monkey wrench into everything that's done there. So
I don't think they're going to stick around long. Oh, thanks, Rick. I don't think they're going to stick around long if you're running out there in the middle of their home territory with flashlights.
Exactly. I think that's what that yacht did. And it had nothing to do with the team I was with prior. This was when I started developing the new team for the first time. I had a guy come in, and he was all this and that, and completely blew, in fact, one of my guys on my team went up there and said, "Hey, you'll never guess who's up here." Really? So the guy completely broke Bigfoot etiquette 101 is thou shalt not covet another researcher's research area.
Well, things happen.
Yeah.
You can have areas that are hot one year, and then the next year, nothing. I mean, not a thing. 2010, I was seeing a Bigfoot anytime I wanted to see one. And then 2011, I couldn't buy one, And so just the way it goes.
Well, you can, if you want to buy a Bigfoot, all you have to do is talk to Rick Dyer. Or you can talk to the clown in Menlo Park. He paid 50 large for a Bigfoot. You can also find that on Amazon.com too. 50 large.
50 large. Yeah, good read. Good historical value there.
So, well, Chris, if we've got no more for the night, I think we'll call it a night. We're at 10:51 right now. And I think we've had a great show. If nobody's got any questions, we will shuffle off to Buffalo. Well, I'm going to shuffle off to bed. I don't know about Chris. Chris will probably shuffle off to, midnight snack.
Lucky, man. Yeah, it's getting close to 10, so I'll end up eating a bite or two and watch some TV before I turn in.
That's where I think I'm headed. I'm not all too happy starting tomorrow's work day. But no, actually tomorrow is collect some money day, and because I got a couple of bills to put out there for people. Yeah, right. Yeah, I love a couple of invoices to make tomorrow morning, and make a few phone calls set up for the rest of the week. So it's been a nice, good day. So all right, folks. Well, if that's all we got, so I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by, saying hello. If you like what you see, especially on YouTube, give us the thumbs up for the show. We love you guys. We're going to come back here next week with another entertaining and informative program, hopefully. We've kind of been light on the comedy lately and more on the education and a little more on the information, and that's okay. I kind of like it too. It makes the time go by. But want to wish everybody a good, safe, healthy, happy week. God bless, folks. God bless. And most of all, keep on squatching. We'll catch you all here next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, Squatch-D TV. SquatchDTV.com, SquatchDetective.com. Find us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We'll catch you all later.